instincts of a top-tier assassin are far more terrifying than most people could imagine. The moment she got off the phone with her boyfriend, she immediately realized her cover had been blown, and her professional survival instincts kicked into overdrive. Without hesitation, Leah pulled up the security cameras to check. Sure enough, a heavily armed special operations team had completely surrounded the building and was conducting a floor-by-floor search. Leah quickly tossed her phone away and pulled a handgun from beneath her desk. It turned on the shower to make it seem like she was still inside the apartment. Before leaving, she even remembered to open the birdcage. At the same time, the special operations team split into two groups. One team took the elevator up, while the other advanced through the stairwell. However, just as they reached the 5th floor, Leah quickly doubled back to the 6th floor. By perfectly timing every move, she successfully avoided the search team and slipped out into the hallway. She then pulled out a master key and unlocked the door of an unfortunate neighbor's apartment. What no one could have imagined was that Leah had long ago hidden a sniper rifle inside the ceiling of the neighbor's bathroom. Outside the door, Rose ordered his men to plant explosives, preparing to blast open Leah's apartment. What he didn't know was that Leah was doing exactly the same thing in the bathroom next door. Boom! The bathroom wall was blown open, leaving a massive hole that connected directly to the elevator shaft. Using a rope, Leah lowered the sniper rifle down to the 1st floor, and she grabbed onto a support column and slid all the way down herself. Meanwhile, on the other side, Rose thoroughly searched the apartment before finally realizing that Leah had escaped long ago. He immediately ordered the entire building to be locked down, but he was already one step too late. Leah had already kicked open the metal ventilation grate and made her way into the underground parking garage. She then raised her gun and shot the security camera to pieces. At first glance, it looked like she was deliberately provoking the special operations team, but in reality, she was simply distracting them. As expected, the police focused all of their attention on the parking garage. Meanwhile, Leah, always having more than one escape route, quickly slipped into another ventilation shaft. Every move flowed flawlessly and naturally, making it obvious that she had prepared for this long in advance. Leave no corner unchecked. Look under every car and every truck. The special operations team turned the entire parking garage upside down, yet they still couldn't find a trace of Leah. What they never could have imagined was that Leah had already slung the sniper rifle over her back, entered a maintenance room to change into a different outfit, and then calmly walked out of the apartment building. Every time Leah killed someone, she left a black orchid on the victim's body. The reason was simple. It was her way of publicly announcing to her enemies that she was still alive. Rada J spent 15 years transforming from an innocent little girl into a cold-blooded assassin. It all began with a nightmare she experienced when she was 8 years old. In 1992, Colombia was at the height of the drug trade. The most powerful drug lord in the region was a man named Luis, whose criminal network stretched across the globe. At the time, Leah's father, Fabio, was one of Luis's most trusted right-hand men. But after starting a family, Fabio gradually began thinking about leaving that life behind. To show his sincerity, he handed over all of the organization's money laundering records accumulated over the years to Luis, without keeping a copy. Of course not. However, as a core member of a criminal empire, Fabio's desire to walk away unscathed was never going to be that simple. So the moment he returned home, he immediately signaled to his wife to start packing. 10 minutes later, the entire family would have to leave. After that, Fabio searched through his belongings and found a card, which he solemnly handed to the young Leah. Hiroki told her that this was her path to survival. If she ever found herself completely alone, she was to go to the address written on the card. At only 8 years old, Leah had no idea what those words truly meant. Fabio simply told her to keep the card safe and remember every word he had just said. He then removed the necklace that had never left his side and placed it around Leah's neck. It was a protective charm he was leaving behind for his daughter. The new orchid engraved on it was the symbol of the Fabio family, and it would later become the key to Leah's quest for revenge. Never forget where you came from. May God watch over you. The moment those words left his mouth, the assassin sent by Louis stormed into the house. The inevitable had finally arrived. 8-year-old Leah could do nothing but watch helplessly as her parents were brutally murdered before her eyes. But if she wanted to survive, she had no choice but to force herself to remain calm. She did everything she could to avoid showing even the slightest hint of fear. Even so, the lead assassin, Mark, saw through her forced composure with a single glance. At the same time, he began to take an interest in this unusually intelligent child. He ordered his men to lower their weapons and sat down across from Leah. You know who Louis is, don't you? Very good. Right now, your father is keeping something that belongs to Louis. Mark described the item he was looking for. It was very small, about the size of a memory card. To his surprise, Leah nodded and said that she knew where it was. Mark's eyes immediately lit up. He eagerly demanded to know where the memory card was, completely unaware that the hand Leah had hidden beneath the table had already been waiting for the perfect moment. I'm going to kill Louis, leaving behind a statement filled with murderous intent. Leah turned and sprinted straight into the bathroom before decisively leaping out through the window. Hearing the commotion, the gunman rushed over and wildly opened fire toward the window, but every bullet was blocked by the building itself. Furious, Mark shoved one of his men aside and roared that they had to capture the girl alive. Otherwise, they would never find the item their boss was looking for the rest of their lives. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Leah quickly swallowed the memory card. She then climbed onto a wall and launched herself off, landing neatly on the roof of a car below. At an age when she should have still been in elementary school, Leah was already exceptionally skilled at parkour. She could even maneuver her way around a group of vicious thugs, which just could even maneuver, but no matter how fast she ran, two legs could never outrun cars. A Land Rover blocked the road ahead while a Jaguar closed in from behind. In that critical moment, Leah quickly came up with a plan to take advantage of her small and agile frame. With a swift slide, she slipped directly into a storm drain. The thugs were furious, firing wildly into the drain opening. They tried to force Leah back out, but in the end, it was all useless. No one knew how much time had passed before a manhole cover on a city street was slowly pushed open. Leah cautiously poked her head out. Only after making sure the assassins were no longer pursuing her did she climb all the way out. The unfamiliar streets left Leah frightened and completely alone. The lost look in her eyes was enough to break anyone's heart, but Leah never stopped moving. Instead, she walked straight up to a fully armed soldier and handed him the pass card her father had given her. Sure enough, after taking a single glance at the card, the soldier immediately escorted Leah into the office area. Not long afterward, a high-ranking inspector personally came to meet her. Without offering much explanation, Leah simply reached her hand into her throat and forced herself to throw up. Then, from the filthy mess, she retrieved the tiny memory card. Although the inspector's face showed obvious disgust, he eventually reached out and took it. After cleaning it off, he inserted it into a computer. To his surprise, the contents left him completely stunned. Everyone else in the room to leave, leaving only Leah behind, still unaware of what was happening. "My dear, where did you get this card?" "From my father." "Where's your father now?" "He's dead." The inspector immediately fell silent. In the end, all he could do was ask Leah if she understood the significance of this card. To his surprise, the little girl answered without a moment's hesitation. "It's a ticket to a new life." And just like that, Leah exchanged the valuable memory card for a plane ticket out of Colombia. And escorted by a female agent, she successfully arrived in Miami. She was also given a considerable amount of cash. The money was enough for her to begin a new life. Using the excuse of needing to use the restroom, Leah cleverly slipped away from the female agent's supervision. After waiting for nearly 20 minutes, the agent finally realized something was wrong. She hurriedly pushed open the restroom door to check, only to discover that there was no one left inside. And while the female agent was searching everywhere for her, Leah was already aboard a long-distance bus headed to Chicago. The no relative she had left was there, her uncle Emilio, a respected figure in the underworld. By the time Leah arrived in Chicago, it was already late at night. At that moment, Emilio was in an alley dealing with a traitor. Just as he was beating the man until he was covered in blood, one of his subordinates came running over in a panic, saying that a little girl named Leah wanted to see him. The moment Emilio heard her name, he immediately stopped what he was doing and hurried out of the alley, pulling the tiny girl into a tight embrace. He simply could not imagine how an 8-year-old child had managed to travel all the way from Colombia to Chicago on her own. And for Leah, the moment she saw her uncle, she finally allowed herself to relax after keeping her nerves stretched to the breaking point for so long, and tears began streaming down her face. "It's okay now. You're safe now. You're safe." The next morning, Leah was strong again as if nothing had happened. She said something that left Emilio stunned. She wanted to become an assassin. Only then would she be able to avenge her parents with her own hand. "Can you train me?" "Of course I can." Emilio understood the obsession burning inside Leah's heart, so he didn't immediately dismiss the idea. But at the same time, he quietly made a decision of his own. The following day, Emilio took Leah to school. After all, before becoming an assassin, it would probably be best to learn how to write those words first. But revenge was the only thing on Leah's mind. "I've already told you what I want. If you won't help me, that's fine. I'll find my own way." After hearing that, Emilio said nothing. Instead, he pulled out a gun and suddenly unleashed a barrage of bullets at a car approaching nearby. Amid the deafening gunfire, the innocent vehicle completely lost control and slammed into a fire hydrant by the roadside. "Do you see that? Is this really what you want? You want me to train you into an assassin? That's not a problem. I can teach you, but in less than 5 years, you'll end up getting yourself killed." In this world, everything has different levels of skill and ability. Assassins are no exception. There are amateurs and there are masters, and if you want to stand at the very top, knowing how to pull a trigger isn't enough. You need a superior mind and a broad range of knowledge. Even though Emilio himself wasn't particularly educated, he understood one thing very clearly. If Leah wanted to become a true master, she needed to understand psychology as well as subjects like mathematics, physics, and chemistry, and the only place she could learn those things was at school. After saying that, Emilio held a gun in one hand and a school bag in the other, signaling for Leah to make her own choice. After a brief moment of silence, Leah decisively took the school bag. She was a smart girl. Most things only needed to be explained once for her to understand. Emilio hardly had to worry about her at all. In the blink of an eye, 15 years passed. Not only had Leah grown up, but she had also become exactly what she set out to be, a top-tier assassin. Over the years, she had developed a principle that had made her nearly unbeatable. A truly skilled hunter often appears in the guise of the prey. One day on a street in California, 2 patrol officers were sitting in their cruiser eating hamburgers. Just then, a red Plymouth suddenly crashed into the police car. The woman behind the wheel was so drunk she could barely tell up from down. She couldn't even stand properly. The two officers immediately got out and restrained her. The woman offered absolutely no resistance. However, the orchid necklace around her neck revealed her true identity. The seemingly intoxicated woman standing before them was none other than the grown-up Leah. The police took her back to the station and locked her up, planning to question her the next morning after she sobered up. But that very night, a small incident occurred inside the police station. A team of FI agents arrived while escorting a high-profile criminal through the building. The prisoner had a menacing look on his face, and his attitude was arrogant to the extreme. He clearly had no respect for the police whatsoever. What he didn't know was that this would be the last time he would ever act so arrogantly. The agents securely locked the cell door, leaving only a single officer on guard. Meanwhile, in the women's holding area, Leah noticed that the jailer had turned off the lights and left. She immediately sat up and ripped off her wig, and she rolled down the stockings that had been covering her heels. In less than a minute, she transformed into an assassin moving through the shadows. The locked cell door couldn't hold her at all. With nothing more than a hairpin, she easily picked the lock. Leah quietly slipped out of her cell and carefully adjusted the angle of a surveillance camera. The officer on duty was absorbed in reading a newspaper and didn't notice anything unusual. After taking care of that, Leah picked up a spoon from a teacup and quietly made her way to the break room to get a cup of water. She then headed straight for the electrical room. First, she removed the ventilation cover in the ceiling and placed the spoon inside an electrical box. Next, she bit a small hole in the cup and hung it directly above the spoon. After setting a timer, Leah closed the electrical box and climbed into the ventilation duct. Once inside, she even restored the vent cover to its original pause and climbed. And drop after drop of water slowly fell onto the spoon. Leah crawled forward through the duct, staying low until she reached a ventilation fan. Keeping her eyes fixed on the timer, she began counting down. Just as expected, the fan suddenly stopped spinning. Leah immediately seized the opportunity and quickly crawled past it. By the time the officers rushed over to inspect the electrical system, she had already crossed safely long ago. Immediately afterward, Leah followed the ventilation shaft until she reached a restroom. At that moment, the officer guarding the high-profile prisoner was using the bathroom. Leah silently moved behind him and delivered a powerful sidekick, knocking him unconscious on the spot. She then used the unconscious officer's body as cover, successfully avoiding the camera's line of sight before making her way into the guard room. The assassination plan had finally reached its final stage. Leah drew the handgun from the officer's holster and stepped into the high-profile prisoner's cell. She aimed directly at her target and pulled the trigger without hesitation. This was the principle of a top-tier assassin, no matter where the target hid. Death was the principle of a top-tier assassin, no matter where the target hid. Death was inevitable. And gunshots startled every officer on duty, and the entire police station immediately descended into chaos. However, by the time everyone rushed to the cell, Leah had vanished without a trace. All that remained was a dead prisoner and the bewildered guard. No matter how hard he thought about it, he couldn't understand what had happened. He had only gone to the bathroom for a moment, so how had he suddenly become the prime suspect in a murder? The FI agent was furious and immediately led a team to search the entire station. What he didn't know was that Leah had already retraced her route back to her cell, put on the appearance of the drunk woman once again, and climbed into bed to continue pretending to sleep. The following day, FBI headquarters dispatched a senior agent named Rose to take charge of investigating the bizarre murder. While examining the prisoner's body, Rose discovered an orchid drawn on the victim's chest along with several letters. He immediately realized that the killer was the serial assassin the FI had been desperately trying to track down. This was already the 22nd victim. Understanding the seriousness of the case, Rose quickly asked the local police to take him to the crime scene. A shooting this severe had occurred right inside a police station. Every officer was overwhelmed with work and stretched to their limits. As a result, nobody had the time or energy to worry about a minor drunk driving case. And just like that, Leah was successfully released. After walking out of the station, she casually removed her plastic gloves and threw them away. She then entered a public restroom, changed into a set of clothes she had hidden there in advance, and calmly boarded a bus to leave the area. The entire assassination operation had been clean and decisive, leaving behind no trace whatsoever. Meanwhile, Rose carefully inspected the crime scene and concluded that the killer had likely entered and carried out the murder through the ventilation system. But beyond that, he found no substantial leads. However, Leah had used a false identity and had deliberately used the unconscious officer's body to conceal her face, preventing the cameras from capturing a clear image of her. The system yielded no useful information either. At that moment, not a single officer suspected that the killer was the drunk woman. Once again, the investigation had reached a dead end. Could the serial assassin really escape once more? Rose was naturally unwilling to give up. Every victim had been marked with the symbol of an orchid. He was certain that the assassin was trying to send a mark with the symbol of an orchid. He was certain that the assassin was trying to send a message, but that message might not necessarily necessarily be intended for the police. So he ordered the orchid symbol and details of the murders to be published on the front pages of major newspapers across the country, hoping to lure the snake out of its hole. What he didn't know was that this was exactly what Leah wanted. For all these years, she had continued killing people in the same manner because she wanted to use the attention generated by law enforcement to openly declare war on Lewis, the mastermind responsible for her parents' death. Before long, the widespread news coverage caught Lewis's attention. By now, he had successfully cleaned up his public image and was even under special protection from the CIA. However, the CIA had no desire to get dragged into unnecessary trouble and demanded that Lewis put an end to the matter as quickly as possible. She's challenging us from afar. It might not even be her. I told you 15 years ago not to leave any witnesses alive. Since he had failed to eliminate the problem at its root 15 years earlier, Louis assigned Mark to hunt down Leah, giving him a chance to redeem himself for his past mistake. Meanwhile, after returning to Chicago, Leah received a new assignment from her uncle Emilio. This time, the target was a man weighing well over 100 kilograms. He had used fraudulent funds to steal $50 billion in dirty money and had somehow remained beyond the reach of the law. The people he had harmed believed that justice must be served. That principle never changes. I accepted the assignment and promised her uncle that she would handle it quickly. At that moment, the overweight man was relaxing inside a luxurious mansion, enjoying a life of excess with beautiful women by his side, completely unaware that danger was rapidly approaching. That very night, Leah infiltrated the mansion by swimming through the pool. Only someone like her would dare to risk swimming alongside sharks. Before long, she reached the glass wall. Carefully raising her head above the water, she checked her surroundings. After confirming that everything was clear, she quickly climbed out of the pool. Carefully raising with practiced movements, she attached a suppressor to her handgun. Meanwhile, the overweight man was asleep in bed with several beautiful women in his arms, completely unaware that the dark barrel of a gun was aimed directly at him. He suddenly woke from his sleep and discovered that a black orchid had been drawn on his stomach. It was Leah's signature mark. Breathing heavily, he climbed out of bed. Only then did he discover that all of his bodyguards had already been killed. Panic immediately set in. He grabbed a gun and cautiously made his way toward the pool. When he noticed an orchid resting against the glass, he had no idea what it meant. Acting on instinct, he picked up the flower and brought it to his nose for a smell. But that cool, delicate fragrance would be the last scent he would ever smell. Turn around. Who are you? That doesn't matter. 2 shots rang out, striking the overweight man cleanly in both legs. His agonized screams instantly echoed throughout the mansion, but all of his pleas for mercy were useless. Even so, Leah had no intention of killing him directly. Useless. For someone who had built his fortune by exploiting ordinary people, a quick death would have been a reward. Leah had no intention of granting him that mercy. The smell of blood quickly attracted the sharks swimming below. Within moments, the man was torn apart and devoured by the sharks, becoming the 23rd target eliminated by Leah. The next day, back at the police department, Rose stared at the orchid symbol over and over again. Just then, a janitor happened to walk by and casually mentioned that the flower originated from Colombia. The inspector's eyes immediately lit up. He quickly began investigating this new lead. However, he soon discovered that the related files had long been classified and encrypted. Access required authorization from the CIA. Rose immediately contacted the CIA and requested access from the official in charge, a man named Stephen. To his surprise, the request was flatly denied. It turned out that the case was connected to far more than he had imagined. In fact, the CIA itself was involved. Meanwhile, Mark had also arrived in Chicago with his men. He ordered them to search the city and question every Colombian they could find until they discovered Leah's address. Up to this point, Leah had operated with extraordinary caution. Her methods were so meticulous that she had left virtually no trace that could be followed back to her. Yet there was always someone unintentionally threatening to ruin everything, and that person happened to be the man closest to her, her boyfriend Danny. Danny had always found Leah both mysterious and irresistible. There was something about her that captivated him completely. And after being apart for so long, the moment they reunited, the spark between them reignited instantly. Danny could hardly contain himself as his desires began to take over. While Leah was sleeping, Danny secretly used his phone to take photos of her and even showed them off to his best friend. This single action almost pushed Leah into a dead end. When Danny was called outside the car by a traffic officer, his friend immediately sent the photos to his younger sister, who worked at the police station, asking her to help verify Leah's true identity. On the surface, it looked like he was doing it for his best friend's happiness, but as soon as the female officer uploaded the photo into the database, Rose immediately received an alert from the system. After cross-checking, the system confirmed that Leah was the same drunk woman involved in the murder case that night. Rose immediately traced Danny's phone signal and ordered his team to dispatch officers to the target location, while also issuing a nationwide arrest warrant. Not long after, Leah called Danny. The police quickly traced the signal and located Leah's current hiding. The police quit. At that moment, Danny carelessly mentioned that he had a photo of Leah and often looked at it whenever he missed her. But those sweet words brought Leah no comfort at all. For an assassin, being photographed was no different from having her identity exposed. Sure enough, before she even had time to relocate, a heavily armed special operations unit had already surrounded the entire building. What followed was the same breakout scene from the beginning. Leah once again outsmarted the police in a battle of wits and successfully escaped the dangerous apartment complex. When she returned home, she discovered that her uncle's entire family had been slaughtered. The bodies showed clear signs that they had been brutally tortured before death. Leah held her uncle's body and cried uncontrollably. This was the most painful price she had paid since choosing the path of revenge. At this point, there was nothing left in her heart except the desire to personally kill Louis. Meanwhile, on the other side, Rose returned empty-handed with his team. But late that night, when he arrived home, he found an uninvited guest waiting for him. It was Leah, the assassin, who had always managed to stay out of reach. She said nothing more and immediately forced Rose to sit down. Right now, you're sitting on a highly sensitive pressure bomb. One wrong move and you'll be blown sky high. Seeing the bomb placed right beneath him, Rose didn't dare make any reckless movement. On top of that, Leah was also using his family's safety as leverage. Rose had no choice but to reluctantly agree to cooperate with her and help locate Louis's current whereabouts. So early the next morning, he hurried to meet Inspector Stefan, and he got straight to the point and demanded that Stephen reveal Louis's current location. But as expected, he was flatly refused. What am I supposed to do then? Call the police. Stephen's openly dismissive attitude made Rose grind his teeth in anger, but there was nothing he could do. After all, he couldn't fully break ties at this stage. Otherwise, he would lose all leads on Louis. However, just as Rose was about to leave, the situation suddenly took a turn. And it's if you don't give me what I want, I'll use your body to redecorate this office. After hearing that, Stephen simply sneered. He lowered his head and glanced at the red laser dot aimed directly at his chest, then turned to look out the window. Arrogantly, he said that the glass in this office could withstand 57mm armor-piercing rounds. If Leah has the ability, she can go ahead and shoot. As soon as he finished speaking, Rose immediately leaned to the side and took cover behind the wall. The very next second, a bullet pierced straight through the glass and struck the photo frame behind Stephen. As expected, some lessons only need to be taught once to be remembered. This time, Stephen finally gave in completely. He quickly revealed Louis's hiding location to Rose, because he had no desire to become the 24th target on Leah's assassination list. And just like that, Leah's path of revenge officially began. She went to an armory and loaded an entire truck with various firearms and ammunition. At the same time, a ruthless plan slowly took shape in her mind. Before going after Louis, Leah made a stop at the construction bureau. There, she easily obtained the architectural blueprints of Louis's mansion. Meanwhile, Louis had also received the news that Leah was coming for revenge. He immediately gathered his subordinates and surrounded the mansion map to discuss countermeasures. In the end, they decided to set up an inescapable net-tight defenses, waiting for the perfect opportunity to eliminate Leah. But they could never have imagined that Leah would not play by the rules at all. The mansion was suddenly blown apart by rockets, reduced to ruins like would not play by the glass himself was pinned beneath a collapsed sofa. Mark immediately ordered his men to drive in for backup. However, just as their vehicles rushed out of the parking area, they were rammed and flipped by a truck driven by Leah, crushing them completely. Seeing that escaping by vehicle was no longer an option, Mark could only prioritize getting Louis into a safe room. As for himself, he prepared to lead his men in a numbers-based assault, relying on overwhelming firepower to directly suppress Leah. But his plan had already been seen through. Leah had never studied by the book over the years. Not only did she fully understand Mark's psychology, she also used it against him. Seizing the opportunity, she executed a counter-move and slipped directly into the basement, the weakest point in their defenses. Using sound alone, she accurately pinpointed the enemy's positions. Then she unleashed a full magazine, turning them into a sieve. Mark threw a grenade toward the direction of the gunfire, but Leah had already changed positions. The incoming men rushed in to surround and capture her, only to become human targets instead. When the gunfire finally died down, only Mark and one subordinate were still standing on the scene, but their situation was already extremely dire. They were forced into a bathroom by Leah. Not long after, 2 gunshots rang out outside. The guard stationed at the door was also killed by Leah. Mark hurriedly reloaded his pistol, only to realize that he had already fired all the bullets. With no other choice, he threw the gun away and prepared to fight hand-to-hand. 2 seconds later, Leah slowly walked toward him holding a gun. She had been waiting for this moment for 15 years. But Mark's skills were not to be underestimated. He knocked the gun out of Leah's hand. However, Leah's reaction was even faster. She smashed a vase against his head, then used a towel to tightly restrain his wrist. The two immediately plunged into a brutal close-quarters fight. After a fierce struggle, Leah finally killed the man who had murdered her parents all those years ago with her own hands. But the revenge was still not over. The mastermind behind everything, Louis, was still alive. Seeing no updates from Mark, Louis immediately realized the situation had turned against him. He quickly escaped from the safe room and drove away in the only remaining vehicle in the mansion. He thought this would allow him to escape Leah's pursuit, but he had no idea that this was also part of her plan. Actually, right now you're exactly where I want you to be. Eat it. In the end, Leah finally avenged the bloody revenge she had carried for years, but there was no joy in her heart. This act of revenge had taken everything from her, and it had already determined that she could never live a normal or peaceful life again. Meanwhile, Danny was being interrogated by Rose. Instinctively, he lied to protect Leah. No matter what he was asked, he insisted that he knew nothing. He had no idea about anything. But as soon as Rose left, Danny received a phone call from Leah. She calmly told him the entire truth. She admitted that she was the serial killer, yet Danny showed no surprise at all. It was as if he had already guessed everything. "I love you." At that moment, Rose suddenly returned and snatched the phone away. But all that remained on the line was a long dial tone. Leah wiped away her tears. She still remembered every bit of pain clearly. But in the end, she chose to carry all those those memories alone and walk toward an unknown distance. Perhaps one day she would meet Danny again, or perhaps they would never see each other for the rest of their lives. No one could know. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. There are many more great films ahead. See you in the next video.